Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to stick to Hong Kong and we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel many times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the last couple of years, quite a few different styles, and if people were to ask me about this brewery, I would say that they are just pretty damn solid all round, although my go-to beers from this brewery tend to be their lagers because I think they're really authentic and just very, very well done. So if you like lagers, this is one of the breweries in Hong Kong you really need to check out. But the beer we're going to have a look at today is a style that I haven't tried from these guys before, a style that I very much enjoy though, and I'm really curious to try what I believe is my first Hong Kong brewed example of this style actually, and it's got a little bit of a twist to it as well, which I think should be really quite interesting. I've heard very, very good things from beer lovers around Hong Kong about this particular beer as well. So needless to say, I'm very, very curious to see what this one's going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head over to Hong Kong Island. We're going to go to the southern part of the island to Wong Chuk, and that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from the wonderful Young Master Brewery. So this particular beer is called MIO. It comes in at 9.5% ABV. I should point out as well that this is the 2022 edition, but this one is a Belgian style quadruple, and it's also been aged in whiskey barrels as well. So yeah, this should be really quite interesting. I actually bought this beer at TAP, the Ale Project, in Mongkok, because I saw it on the menu and I'd never seen this beer in any shops actually, and they told me that they had one last bottle of it through the back, so I bought this one to save for my friend coming to do a nice review of. So finally the time is here to have a taste of this one. But if you've watched the channel for any length of time, you'll know that I'm a big fan of the big brown sugary malty beers, you know, the Scotch ales of course being Scottish, the American barley wines, the German Doppelbocks, and of course the Belgian quadruples. So yeah, my very first time trying a Hong Kong brewed Belgian style quadruple, so I think this will be pretty damn good actually. Maybe Yardley's have done one of these, but this is certainly the first Hong Kong brewed quadruple that I've come across. But yeah, there's been a few editions of this beer from what I understand. There was one I think in 2021, and it did say on the website that the first one was brewed back in 2016, so they've probably done a couple of these in between then as well. But yeah, let's crack on with this one then and see what it has in store for us. So, as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Young Master Brewery before, and we will no doubt add more to that list at some point in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Hong Kong playlist along with a number of other things, and do make sure you check out the playlist of beers from different countries as well, because there are some very, very interesting things on the channel these days. But yeah, let's go on to the brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Young Master Brewery once again then. So, Young Master Brewery was founded back in 2013 by Rohit Dugar, who is originally from New Delhi in India. So he worked in the finance sector for a number of years, and he moved from New York in the US to Hong Kong in 2011, and he was working in the city for Goldman Sachs before he decided he wanted to quit the finance sector, and he ended up founding his own microbrewery. Much of course of that was due to the fact that he was exposed to craft beer in America. But he was joined at the brewery by the German brewer Ulrich Altbauer, who had quite an extensive experience of brewing in mainland China as well as other places if I'm not mistaken, but he was the original master brewery until he sadly died in 2016. So the current brew team is Edwin and Brian, both of whom have worked for Young Master for quite a number of years, as well as having worked under Ulrich as well. But the first brewery they had was in Ap Lei Chau, which is a little island just off the south coast. of Hong Kong, very close to Aberdeen, of course, Scottish vibes. But yeah, this was their main production. They were operating a 10 hectolitre brewery here until mid 2016, and that was around the time that Ulrich died, of course, when they moved. But they opened up a new brewery in Wong, Chuk, just across the water, with a 40 hectolitre brew house from GEA in Germany, and they opened up a larger barrel aging area as well. The other thing that was really cool about their move to this new facility was that they added a fodder for producing sour beers, and they were the first brewery anywhere in Asia to have one of these kind of Belgian style fodders. So a very, very pioneering brewery in this regard as well. But they've got several tap rooms and restaurants these days. This includes TAP in Mongkok, where this beer was bought, Second Draft over in Victoria Park, which is probably my favourite of the Young Master venues as well, Pub 1842 in Central, which I do still need to go and visit actually, and also the Guild down in Singapore, where I stopped and had a beer, and that's a pretty interesting bar. It's like a kind of circular shape, so quite expensive to build that thing actually. But they previously had another TAP branch up in Chunwan, which is northwest of me here in Kowloon, and also the Alvy's pub in Kennedy Town, which did some really, really good pizza. I was very sad when that closed, of course. But today they're the largest craft brewery by volume in Hong Kong, and also the most decorated craft brewery in the territory as well. And as of June 2024, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 280 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and they now employ about 20-25 people, something like that. But a very, very well respected name both in Hong Kong and further afield across Asia in terms of craft beer. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Young Master for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a wee bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on and have a wee look at the beer itself. That is your brewery history section. So yeah, I'll let you have a wee look at the artwork on this one before we open up. Unfortunately, the beer did come with a little bit of a dent on the label, but you know, as long as the beer's okay, that's not the biggest deal. It's just my OCD that's a little bit upset. But yeah, looks pretty nice. Nicely presented, this one, as you can see. MIO says whiskey barrel aged Belgian quadruple. So notice that the whiskey is spelled W-H-I-S-K-E-Y. It didn't say on Young Master's website what barrel they used for this, but we can deduce that it's not Scottish, because if it was Scottish whiskey, it would be spelled W-H-I-S-K-Y, not W-H-I-S-K-E-Y, but you know, that doesn't really narrow it down all that much. But you can also see that this is bottle number 154 of 564. So yeah, pretty nice there. But you can see the Young Master characters on the top there. That is one of the brewery symbols. You can see it has this lovely wax top, which I've put a slice in just before starting the video. So yeah, this should be really quite nice. It says it's best before the 25th of September 2027. So we're drinking this one in June 2024. So you could age this, you probably could age it longer than that in all honesty. But yeah, the other thing to notice about this one is that it says it uses method champenois. Probably pronouncing that wrong, but yeah, basically that's a method of they blend the thing up basically and add a bit of yeast and sugar and things like that for secondary fermentation. So basically it's bottle conditioned is the way to describe that. But yeah, 9.5% quadruple, this one, the MIO 2022 edition from Young Master Brewery in Wong Chuk Hang on Hong Kong Island. Let's get this guy out into the glass and see what it has in store for us. And that opened nice and cleanly. This thing, by the way, proper Swiss Army knife. It works for opening these wax tops. Very happy with that thing. But yeah, let's get this guy out into the glass and we'll see what it's all about. So, I'm really curious about this. But of course, one of the interesting things to know about the Belgian quadruple as a style, and you know, Belgian beer in general, one of the reasons that the Belgian beers have the higher alcohol is because they add brewing sugar to them. So that's why you get this quite light mouthfeel but very high alcohol, whereas if you got the alcohol purely from the malt, you'd have a much thicker mouthfeel because you'd have to put more malt in there. So that's something to keep in mind with these Belgian style beers. So yeah, I'm really curious to see how this one turns out. There's quite a wee bit of sediment visible in this thing actually. But yeah, before we look at that, you can see I've poured maybe about 40% of the bottle into the glass here. It's a 750 milliliter bottle, incidentally. But yeah, I've poured that out, and you can see it came out with just about a 2/3 finger of a frothy, I would say kind of fawn coloured head there. You can see medium-sized bubbles on the surface of the liquid, and if I bring it up closer to the camera, you can see it's got this lovely kind of foamier character the further up the head that you go. But yeah, anyway, in terms of the colour of this one, when I shine the light through it, through my influencer loop light that I have up here, this one, it's got a lovely sort of, how would we describe that? It's got a lovely sort of bright, slightly stained mahogany kind of colour to it. Maybe chestnut or copper is a good way to describe this one. But there are sediment particles floating around in this one. It has been cellared. Actually, I think the Young Master guys were keeping it in the fridge at TAP, which, you know, probably shouldn't do it. Keep it at that low a temperature for too long. You should let it sit at about 10 or 12 degrees, something like that. So there is quite a bit of sediment particle visible in this one, but that can be a bit more common in Belgian style beers, of course. But yeah, you've got some bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass there, a few little ones going up toward the surface of the head there, and you can see that head has just faded away to be a kind of thinner, foamier layer. But yeah, remember, the colour of your beer that you have depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use, that goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. Any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well. In this case, I would guess that the brewing sugar, most of the colour will of course come from the malts that are used in here, but the brewing sugar, whatever specific variety you use, will play a role in that, and probably the barrel will affect the colour in this one as well, because, you know, it's a brown beer. It is fairly easy with things like this to influence the colour, albeit very, very slightly. So yeah, little bit of natural haze to it as well, which you would kind of expect from a bottle conditioned beer. But yeah, I think it looks the part. It's certainly within the realms of possibility for what you'd expect of a Belgian style quadruple. But yeah, I think you guys, just looking at the viewfinder on the camera, I think it's appearing a little bit darker to you guys than it actually is to the naked eye. But yeah, let's leave it at that for the appearance. I don't think we need to say much more. We'll have a wee look at the aroma of this one then and see what it's all about. But I do have high expectations for this beer because it's Young Master for sure. That does smell very, very nice. Yeah, that's really interesting. When I think about it, the last whiskey barrel aged quadruple beer, I don't know if you can even really call it a quadruple. It was a beer from Gulden Carolus in Belgium. It's their whiskey aged version. And one thing I do often find, particularly with Belgian quadruples, and I think Belgian beers in general you can say it for, but it's a bit harder, I think, in these beers to really notice the barrel character in the same way as it is with, say, a Scotch ale or an American barley wine or a German Doppelbock or something like this. I think that because of the yeasty nature of these beers and the characters that the brewing sugar puts into them, it is just that little bit harder to detect. You can smell a wee bit of it in this, but yeah, takes much more of a back seat in comparison, I think, to the other styles I just mentioned. But yeah, the aroma of this one kind of gives you everything you'd expect. You've got some lovely big sort of brown bready, sort of spirity, cakey kind of notes out of this one. A lot of brown sugar, of course. Nice, you know, dried fruity characters. A little bit of toastiness, and you've got a wee bit of hoppy character to it as well. So let's just try and break it down a wee bit more and describe it for you more in depth, because it does smell great. Yeah, this is pretty awesome. So in terms of the backbone of this beer, you do get a nice little bit of oaky character out of this one, and it's got a wee bit of dryness to it, which makes me think it's maybe European oak rather than American oak. Different species of tree, of course, but I've always found American oak just gives you a little bit more smoothness and a wee bit more vanilla and sweetness, whereas European oak will just give you that little bit more dryness. It could be an Irish whiskey barrel, just going by the notes that I'm getting. But yeah, it's interesting. So yeah, for me, it's 564 bottles of this. Did they maybe just do 1 barrel of this beer? Maybe 2 at the most. Very small batch, I guess, in that case. But yeah. So yeah, for me, the backbone of the beer, you do smell a little bit of what I suspect is European oak. There is a wee bit of vanilla to it, of course, as well. Could be a rye whiskey barrel, come to think of it. That's another thing, because some of the characteristics you're getting a rye whiskey. Might even be a blend of different things. They really should say that on the website. I think, it's something that would be quite interesting to know, because it teaches people that are drinking beer more about it. But yeah, certainly with the spirity side of things, it does almost have a wee bit of a rye whiskey type character to it. But certainly the brown sugary notes that come out of the whiskey are quite sweet, oily and dry, I would say. There's almost a little touch of nuttiness to them as well, but at the same time they're quite bright, which is interesting too. And for me, of course, one of the main differences between American bourbon and Scotch whiskey is the smoothness and the way the sweetness comes out. Bourbon has a little bit of a bite to it, a very bright brown sugary character, whereas the Scottish whiskey is a little bit more kind of smooth and oily and things like that. Very, obviously there's a big spectrum of flavours with Scotch whiskey, but for me that's just a general kind of point to make. But yeah, above the kind of dry woody, dry oaky character, the wee bit of vanilla and the spirit, you start to get the actual malty nature of this beer. So for me, there's a little bit of a kind of sweet rye bready bread crust to this one for sure. Straight up rye bread as well, quite an oily rye bread at that, I would add. Certainly some wholemeal brown bready notes in there. The bready character in this beer almost smells as if it's been like soaked in brandy or something like that. Like it really smells a little bit like a kind of brandy soaked wholemeal brown bread, something like that, or brown bread with a little bit of fruit through it. Really, that's kind of the vibe that the malty base is giving you in this one. Certainly a few little nutty elements in there, like maybe a bit of almond or pecan or something. But certainly, yeah, little hints of nutty character in there, mixing in with the woodiness, of course. Rye bread, wholemeal brown bread, like a kind of oily sweet brown bread as well. Then on top of that, you're getting the some really nice kind of sweet, oily. You're getting a lot of kind of brown sugary characters in this one. So yeah, a couple of things you can do in terms of brown sugars with beers is, you can do a longer wort boil, which is going to give you a more kind of leathery brown sugary character, as they do in the Belgian beers. They can add a little bit of brew sugar, which is going to help as well. But yeah, for this one, the barrel obviously is going to contribute a wee bit to that, but you've got some nice leathery brown sugars in there. You've got a good little bit of toastiness as well. I'm getting quite a little bit of McVitie's digestive biscuity character out of this beer. And there's also, kind of straight up caramel in there, and Werther's original butter candy butterscotch too. So yeah, the brown sugary side of this one, as you would expect with a Belgian quadruple, is really, really nicely done. So on the malty side of things, it's pretty damn nice. The yeasty side of the beer is quite interesting. The back of the nose, you can certainly pick up like a lighter brown bread and a wee bit of woodiness in there. So yeah, we'll get more of that in the actual flavour. But on the hoppy side of things, and remember, the Belgian quadruple is not the most hop forward of styles. This one still does have a little bit of hoppy character there, but that will drop out over time as you age this beer. This one obviously I think it's been released in 2022, and I'm drinking this probably about 2 years later, and it's been barrel aged before that as well. So yeah, that's all worth bearing in mind. Does it actually say the bottled on date with this one? I don't think so. So yeah, not sure if this one was just like brewed in 2022 or if it was bottled in 2022. Let me know that in the comment section below. But anyway, your hoppy character will drop out over time, either in the bottle or through the barrel aging process. That's worth bearing in mind, but you're still getting a bit of it in this beer. There's a little bit of earthiness in there. There's a little bit of herbal character as well. German Northern Brewer might be a hop that these guys would use, because I know they love their German ingredients. Bramling's Cross from England is another prime candidate. for a Belgian style quadruple like this. I'm not sure if there is a specific Belgian variety that they use, but yeah. So a little bit earthy, a little bit herbal, some nice floral notes in there, but not too much on the floral side, and a good wee bit of grassiness. And the fruity side of the beer, I have to say, is very, very nice as well. For me, the fruity side of this beer, it's quite soft actually in a sense. There's a good little bit of raisiny sharpness to it, which I certainly like. I'm getting a good little bit of plum, like bright juicy plum in there. You can get the kind of drier fruits underneath it, like prunes and dates. Stuff like that for sure is coming out of this one. There's definitely a big juicy figgy character to it, some black currants as well. I think that's pretty much everything we can really say about that. But yeah, aroma wise, beautiful, beautiful smelling beer, this one. So as I always say, take a bit of time to just enjoy that aroma before you get stuck in. But I think we can have a taste of this one now and see what it's all about. So yeah, this is the MIO 2022 edition, a 9.5% whiskey barrel aged quadruple from the wonderful Young Master Brewery in Wong, Chuk over on Hong Kong Island. Let's get stuck in. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Pretty damn nice, that actually. Yeah, I have to say, you know, Young Master, these guys, whenever they try something, they always put a hell of a lot of effort into it. You know, they don't do things half-arsed, you can definitely say that. And this beer has turned out very, very nicely. I'm not surprised, because I know what these guys are like, and you know, all the beers I've had from them have been good. But I think the thing that maybe surprises me a little bit about this one is how authentic this is compared to some of the Belgian ones that I've had actually. There's just something about the vibe that this beer has in terms of its yeastiness, the way the kind of brown sugars and everything come out. There's just something about the level of authenticity this one has in comparison with some others in this style category that I've had. So yeah, just going to say well done to Young Master for this. This is definitely worth trying if you get the chance, and I'm sure they'll maybe do some other vintages of this later on. But that is good. So, very smooth as well, and it has a nice, probably the one difference between this one, or the one major difference I would say, is just the mouthfeel, and you know, that's going to vary across the world of course. But this one's quite clean and it has a wee bit of an oily slickness to it, whereas the Belgian ones just have a bit more dryness, I think, in all honesty. But yeah, this is good. This is good. Let's start on the middle third of the palate then and work our way through the beer, as we always do. So, the backbone of this beer, you've got that lovely, smooth, oaky character to this one, and I think maybe what I said about it being European oak could have been a little bit premature, in all honesty. Because it does have a little bit more smoothness to it. Could, you know, I think this might be a blend of, you know, a couple of different, or one or two different whiskey barrels, right enough. But yeah, the way that it goes together, in a sense, I think is really nice though. So yeah. But yeah, the oaky character in this one, it's a wee bit drier further back on the middle third of your palate. As you come further forward, it's a little bit smoother, has a wee touch of vanilla character to it. Then you can feel the spirit layer above that. It feels a little bit brighter, in all honesty, as well. So the brightness you get out of it, maybe feels like it's maybe a slightly more citrusy whiskey. I don't know. I've not tried too many whiskies that are not Scottish, and I've had quite a couple of Japanese ones and things, but yeah, most of the Asian whiskies tend to be that big, smoother, oily sort of thing. The whiskey spirit layer in this one feels a little bit more citrusy and things, which is interesting because it wasn't coming across quite like that in the aroma, I have to say. So yeah, a little bit more of a slightly citrusy whiskey, a bit brighter in terms of its brown sugary quality as well. But yeah, the way that all of that goes together in this one, the way the barrel character comes out is quite nice, and it does show you more and more of that the further that you go into the aftertaste as well. But yeah, I like that about this one for sure, and it just adds that bit more complexity. I think you get more with these beers, you get more the complexity into the aftertaste. But above that, you do start getting the malty side of the beer, so you can feel there's that nice, like slightly toasty, rye bready bread crust in there. I do get the feeling, and knowing Young Master, I've just got an inkling that this beer has has some German malt in it at least, just because of the way some of the bready characters are. There's probably some Munich malt in this one actually, just going by it. But yeah, you've got a bit of that rye bready bread crust, toasty rye bread in the base, the more kind of dense brown rye bready character sitting above that, and you've got a lovely kind of slightly taller layer of like a wholemeal, a kind of more wholemeal, lighter, sweeter brown bread in there as well. So you've got the toasty rye bread crust, a slightly more dense layer of rye bread, then a wholemeal brown bread. I think there's a little bit of like white bread sitting above that as well. All these nice bready layers kind of sitting in there. But the wholemeal brown bready character is interesting because I think it has just a little touch of nuttiness to it, and it almost just feels as if it's got a slight, if it's been slightly soaked in brandy or something like that. There's a wee just bit of that kind of fruity character coming out of it as well, which I think is really interesting. So yeah, the way all of that sort of pieces together on the malty side of things is quite nice, but there's just something about the bready character and the consistency of it that makes me think, yeah, German malt, and these guys love German malt. I know that about this brewery for sure. So yeah, above the kind of white bready layer that you have in this one, I'm surprised there's a bit of white bready character in this one actually. But yeah, above that, you start to get the brown sugary character from the beer. So yeah, the brown sugary character in this beer is quite interesting. So it's not quite as leathery. It's not really leathery at all, to be honest with you. It's quite bright. So yeah, the base layer of the brown sugar in this beer is kind of toasty, for sure. So you've got this like toasty brown sugary brown sugary character form in the base of that. As you move further in from that, you've got like a kind of big circle in the middle of your palate there. So there's a wee bit of yeah, there is a little bit of kind of more, you do have there is a slight leatheriness to it, but I don't know if I'd go as far as saying it's kind of treacle and molasses. Definitely a slightly more caramelized sweet brown sugar in there. And as you reach the dead center of the palate, you can feel there's a kind of Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy sort of thing in there, then a straight up oily sweet caramel in the middle of your palate, potentially just sitting on top of all of that. There's a little bit of that McVitie's digestive biscuity character that I was talking about earlier as well. Yeah, the way that goes together is really nice. The middle third of your palate, of course, is where a lot of the complexity in this beer is coming out, and we've covered it through all the layers there. So yeah, the barrel, the bread, and then the brown sugars sitting on top of that. Yeah, so let's go to the back third of the palate. As I've often said, sweeter flavours will come out further forward on your palate, more dry and bitter flavours will come out further back. But on the back third of your palate, you're going to get similar flavours to the middle third of your palate at different intensities. So yeah, border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get a nice little bit of that bready build up in there. In the base, you've got the slightly rye bready character on the bottom, the brown bread in the middle, and the white bread on top. But then yeah, if you go to the base of that back third of your palate, you've got that barrel character in there, which is slightly drier, of course. Then above that, you've got a more above that you've got a nice kind of spirity layer in there as well, which does feel a little bit drier in fairness. It's quite nice. But then yeah, above that, a kind of sort of brown rye bready character as well, which I think is really nice. And you can feel that that's slightly taller, lighter and more airy than the wholemeal brown bready layer above that, which is a little bit lighter and more airy as well. Then the white bready layer above that, all of these are lighter and more airy, but still a little bit sweet in fairness. Then creeping just over the top of that, you've got the more kind of slightly toasty brown sugar in there, the wee bit of kind of Werther's original character sitting on top of that as well. Then you've got the yeasty side of the beer. So let's just look at the yeasty side of things quickly. Of course, for me, Belgian beer is quite yeast centric, so these notes are kind of important. So yeah, on the back of that, the top of that back third of your palate, yeah, you can feel the yeasty note in there. So it almost feels like the centre, that it's like a mix of like sweet brown bread, but it's got a little bit of that almost banana, clovey type character to it as well. So the yeasty character in this was like sort of banana bread almost. So yeah, wholemeal brown bread, banana bread in there, and then it's just kind of surrounded by a little bit more of a kind of farmhousey, toasty kind of character as well. So yeah, the way this one goes together, I think, is really, really nice. So definitely, yeah, back third of your palate, you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your tongue, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together a little bit more. But the things that linger into the aftertaste, I would say, the yeasty character comes out a little bit more. The oaky side of the barrel is there, and some of the whiskey as well. But then yeah, the drier, biscuity side of the brown sugars too. So yeah, the way that all of that just pieces together, I think, is really, really nice. So gets a thumbs up from me. So let's go on to the hoppy side of things then. Back corners of the palate, of course, you do have that nice little bit of earthiness in there. As you move further forward, it becomes a little bit more herbal, and then as you push further and further forward, it's yeah, it comes out really nicely. But yeah, you've got a little bit of floral aromaticity there round the front curve of the tongue. You get a wee bit more kind of lighter grassy character as well. So yeah, the way that pieces together, I think, is really nice. You still get enough. I think the grassiness is probably the most prominent part of the green component, and I think it just gives the beer a little bit more, almost like zesty character to balance out everything else that's coming out of this. But yeah, interesting stuff. I do wonder, maybe German hops in this, Northern Brewer potentially. But yeah, I think that's everything we need to say about the green component, but still a wee touch of IBU in this one. You obviously could age it a little bit more if you really were inclined to. But yeah, let's look at the front third of your palate then, and the fruity side of things just to round off. So yeah, border region between front third and middle third of your palate. Again, you get a little bit of that bready build up in there, the rye bread in the base, the wholemeal on top of that, then the white bread in there, then the base of that front third of your palate. Yeah, the nice smooth oak in there, a little bit of the spirit layer. The bready layers, of course, are there, and then you've just got this slightly more smooth toasty caramel sitting in there, and then above that you've got that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters roll the way out of the beer. So let's look at those fruity side of things then to round off the flavour section. So yeah, fruity side of the beer is definitely a lot more leaning toward that dry end of the fruity spectrum. There's quite a bit of booziness off this beer as well. I'm certainly getting a bit of that boozy character coming out of this one. So yeah, the boozy side of this beer for me is I can feel it going to my head, of course. Probably why you're getting a slightly longer review in this case. But yeah, the fruity side of things. When you take in the beer, you do, of course, you get a little bit of plum out of it. I don't know if I'd go as far as raisiny sharpness like I was picking up in the aroma earlier, but yeah, nice kind of sort of plum and yeah, maybe more of a kind of pruny character in there. So the back of that front third of your palate, prunes definitely, dates underneath, certainly some sultana type qualities as well, and maybe a little bit of an oily pear as well. But yeah, as you move further forward to the centre of that front third of your palate, it's yeah, certainly as you move further forward toward the centre of that front third of your palate, it's got a little bit more of a slightly figgy note to it. And then yeah, into the front half of the front third of your palate, it's kind of blackcurranty, to be honest with you. I don't know if I'd go as far as saying blackberry with this one. This is really more of a dry, fruity quadruple. So yeah, prunes, dates, sultanas, bit of fig, bit of blackcurrant. I think that kind of rounds up the fruity character on this one quite well. So yeah, that's everything we need to say about the flavour of this beer. Let's just round off with a wee look at the mouthfeel. So, for me, this beer, it's kind of bottom end of full bodied, I would say. And like I said earlier, the thing that differentiates this beer a bit from the Belgian quadruples is slightly it is the thickness, to be honest with you. It is a little bit lighter in its mouthfeel, and it's not quite as dry, I would say, either. So yeah, the beer for me is kind of bottom end of full bodied. Carbonation does have a wee bit of a prickle to it. Of course, you do expect that from these Belgian beers because you've got the secondary fermentation going on in the bottle. So this beer might even be higher than 9.5%. We do have to bear this in mind. But yeah, for me, quite clean, little bit of slickness to it, a little bit oily, but then yeah, a wee bit of carbonation prickle. In terms of the IBU of this beer, what would we say about that? I think it's pretty low, to be honest with you. But there is definitely a little bit of that going on. So maybe, you know, sort of 20-ish IBUs. Maybe, I think 20 is kind of reasonable for this one, in all honesty. But yeah, the malty side of the beer, as I said, you've got the smooth barrel underneath, a little bit of the bite from the spirit, lovely smooth bread, then lovely kind of oily brown sugars in there. And yeah, you have just that little bit of hoppy character and then some really nice oily dry fruits coming out of this one. But all in all, a really, really solid quadruple from the young master. Not surprised because these guys really do pretty much everything very well. Potentially it could have done with a slightly longer wort boil, in honesty. I think that would have brought out the kind of real thickness and dryness of the style just that wee bit better. But yeah, I think they've done a really nice one on that. You do have to remember when it's barrel aged as well, you're going to sacrifice a little bit of that mouthfeel. So potentially the original unbarrel aged version of this would have been that little bit thicker and that little bit drier, but still very, very nice beer, and I wouldn't expect anything less from Young Master. If you get the chance to try this, I don't think you'll regret it. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. This has been really interesting, my first Hong Kong brewed Belgian style quadruple. So once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this one in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Young Master as well, and we will no doubt have more beers reviewed from them on the channel in the fairly near future. But until the next time, slange it, skål, cheers, check out my social media, check out their social media. This one was MIO, 9.5% Belgian style quadruple from Young Master Brewery in Wong, Chuk, Hong Kong Island, here in Hong Kong. Slange it, skål, cheers, and see you guys on the next review. Booze has gone to my head a little bit with this one. Ciao.